My name is Marlene Jugl. I'm an assistant professor at Bocconi University in Milan. I'm here to introduce a new paper that I've co-authored with my colleagues Tobias Bach from the University of Oslo and Dustin Köhler and Wegrich from the Hertie School in Berlin. Our article is titled Regulatory Agencies, Reputational Threats and Communicative Responses. It's recently been published online and open access in Regulation and Governance. First of all, let me tell you a bit about the background of our collaboration. Although we're now spread across Europe, this paper is part of a bigger project that was located at the Hertie School in Berlin. The project on State, Risk and Society, the STARS project, was funded by the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. The STARS project looked at the causes and consequences of the financial crisis. And in this context, our work focused on the regulation of financial markets and on the interaction between financial regulators, politics, and the public. Now let me come to the paper. Our article contributes to the literature on bureaucratic reputation. This literature argues that bureaucratic reputation consists of the beliefs that audiences or certain groups of actors have about an organization. And this reputation has multiple dimensions. For example, a public organization can be appreciated because of its technical expertise and skills. That's technical reputation. Or because it is believed to comply with formal rules and procedures. That's procedural reputation. Or a public organization can be appreciated rather because it appears effective and it fulfills its goals. That's performative reputation. So bureaucratic reputation depends on the views that stakeholders have about the organization on these different dimensions. And a favorable reputation can become an important asset for the organization. And that's why organizations actively manage their reputation. Previous studies have analyzed under which circumstances government agencies respond to criticism and to threats to their reputation. Now, our theoretical contribution is to integrate this communicative behavior with the multidimensional understanding of reputation and with the particular characteristics of regulatory agencies. In particular, we theorize about the different reputational dimensions. For a regulatory agency, the performative, procedural, and technical dimensions should be most important and most central to their mission. And that's because the reason for establishing independent agencies in the first place was to ensure expertise and independence from political interference. That's why we expect regulatory agencies to respond more to external judgments that address these particular dimensions. But regulatory agencies are not all the same. Their reputational profile depends on the context, on the political context, and on the past. It depends on what went well and what went wrong in the past in the eyes of the stakeholders or audiences. That's how a reputation builds up. We include this exact idea in our theoretical expectations. We argue that whether a regulatory agency responds to judgments on its procedural, performative, or technical reputation depends on its reputational reserves. It depends on whether the agency generally enjoys a rather weak or strong reputation on these respective dimensions. And this is what we call reputational profile. Empirically, we look at the German financial regulator BaFin. BaFin is a regulatory agency that oversees the banking and insurance markets. In the last years, BaFin has come repeatedly under criticism and it has faced several scandals. Most recently, it was accused of regulatory failure in the scandal around the Wirecard company and its balance sheet fraud. Now, in terms of data, we coded 710 articles from a leading quality newspaper from between 2002 and 2016. And these articles all contain a judgment or an opinion about the BaFin raised by some other actor. And we're trying to explain under which circumstances the BaFin responded to these opinions or comments, for example, through a written statement or in a press conference. So for each article, we coded whether there's a response from BaFin. We also coded the overall tone of the article. We coded the actor or the type of actor that made the comment about the BaFin. And of course, we coded which reputational dimension was affected. In terms of analysis, we use descriptive statistics and logistic regressions. Now let's move on to some findings. Here you can see the distribution of articles about BaFin in terms of the reputational dimension that is addressed and in terms of the overall opinion or tone of the article. The absolute number of articles confirms what we've expected for regulatory agencies, and that is that the moral dimension is really peripheral. And instead, the performative, technical, and the procedural dimensions are more central. They receive more media coverage. Among these three, though, the performative dimension is where BaFin is most criticized, with 71% of articles having a clearly negative tone. On the other hand, the reputational reserve on the technical dimension is stronger, with negative and positive articles on fairly similar levels. Based on our framework and on these descriptive findings, we now expect that the BaFin is most likely to respond to opinions that target its performative and procedural dimensions. And we investigate this in the next step. This graph plots the estimated odd ratios from two logistic regression models. The dependent variable in both of them is the BaFin's response, coded as either 0 or 1. For now, let's focus on the middle part of the graph with the odd ratios for the different dimensions. Indeed, we find no significant effect for the technical and the moral dimensions of reputation. But we do have significant and also robust results for the performative and the procedural dimensions. These odd ratios suggest roughly that BaFin was 2 times more likely to respond in articles that address the performative dimension compared to articles that don't touch upon this dimension. And we've roughly the same effect size for the procedural dimension. With these findings, we demonstrate that a regulatory agency reacts differently to public judgments about different reputational dimensions. BaFin prioritizes public responses to opinions that targets its central but weak reputational dimensions, here the procedural and performative ones. But our framework can also be applied to other settings and other types of regulatory agencies, and that's precisely because it allows to consider the respective context and the reputational profile of an agency. As you can see here, we've also investigated the effect of the tone of the article and of the different types of stakeholders or sources that commented on the BaFin. But in this video, I'm not going into these details. But if you want to learn more about our study, go to the Regulation and Governance website to download the article. As I said, it's open access. And please do not hesitate to get in touch with us in case you have any comments or questions. Thank you for watching, take care, and goodbye.